So welcome everyone. It's about 7:03. Sorry, it's about 4:03. We'll get started here. And I'd just like to invite you to get comfortable. If you need a glass of water, or if you would like to put your feet up. Welcome to tonight's webinar on Shift Happens. And the focus of tonight's class is on mindset and emotions. And we're going to learn some practical techniques for navigating life's transitions. And my name is Michelle. I'm one of the nurse care navigators at the VEBA Resource Center. And I have been a nurse for 26 years. And the most important thing that I'd like to share with you tonight is that to empower you to know that everything you need to survive and to thrive is already within you. So as a nurse for 26 years, the most powerful lesson that I learned is that our resilience as human beings is measured by our nervous system. So we will begin to explore what nourishes and what affects our nervous system. And just to describe, our autonomic nervous system is an involuntary system designed to protect us from danger and to soothe us. So I'll give a good example of, let's say you're driving down the 5 or driving down a busy road and you're looking at your phone and all of a sudden traffic in front of you is stopped and instantly your body reacts. You're in action, hitting the brake. That is your sympathetic nervous system protecting you from danger. And as an emergency room nurse, that is a plug for you to make sure that you're putting your phone down before you get in the car. Because if you're not, none of this is going to matter anyway. So just a little plug there. And then the other part of our nervous system is our soothe, our rest and digest. And that is when our heart is activated, when moments of awe or joy, or we come home and we've done our good day of work and we can relax. We have flow and ease and grace. So we need both of these systems and we need them to be in balance. So there's a lot of things that we can control and there's a lot of things that we can't control. And as we go through this PowerPoint, some of the things that we're going to focus on are things that we can't control, like most of the time our emotions and feelings, because they're based on a belief system, how we were raised, what our parents thought, what we hear on the television, on the radio. Everything just comes, flying in, and we have an emotion and a feeling about it. Where we can put the pause button is bringing awareness to our thoughts. So our thoughts are very powerful and can't always control their thoughts because I was just reading the other day, we get about 50,000 to 75,000 thoughts running through our mind. So when we bring focused awareness to our thoughts, when we harness and bring, control and a space and a time to let our thoughts process, and we focus on where we want to see our behaviors and our outcomes. And this is based on our mindset, which is a pattern of all of these things, a pattern of everything that we have learned thus far. So being able to repattern and to shape where we want in our vision, so we can be the conductor of our orchestra, of our mind, our body, our spirit, our emotions, our feelings and thoughts. So to slow down a little bit, I'd like to bring a story up of Dr. Emoto, who did a study on the power of thoughts and intentions. So if we focus and set our intention, he did a study where he had 2 different sets of water. And with one group of water, he set the intention of love, healing, peace, and then froze the water. And the other one, he exposed them to feelings and intentions of hate, anger, incongruency. One even had music, beautiful music, and the other had kind of music that didn't really make sense, and froze them. Took out both, and under a microscope and photography, was able to visualize the water molecules that had coherency and intention and thought of love and healing was, as you would imagine, beautiful, coherent, in congruency, and the others was disjointed, unorganized, not aesthetically pleasing. So just knowing the power of your thought in your mind is where I'd like us to think about. And as we move on and go through looking at ways that we can support our thoughts and our emotions, leading to our behaviors and our outcomes. So one way to do this, there's many ways, but one way is to leverage our lessons in the past, which creates confidence and strategies for stability in the present. And that's where the magic happens, in our present moment. But we'll get onto that in just a moment. And this will lead to increased focus and kind of adding clarity in the chaos. And this year, as we know, has been very turbulent and trying times. So just like we can, leveraging the past, we've done this before. We have moved through and successfully navigated challenges, disruptions, things that got in our way. So when we bring our powerful thoughts into ways that we have successfully gotten through, what are those ways? Giving ourselves time and space to process and to think about this is what we're going to jump into next. 3 steps in ways that we can process and think about. How did we overcome the challenge? What strengths did we use? And what are those lessons that we can learn from? Without judgment of how we navigated, how we got there, just focusing on our success. So that means, to me, focusing on our strengths. So setting up the stage for focusing on our internal environment, allowing the outside to be as it is. And as we move through, to create the confidence and strategies for stability in our present moment. And like I said, our present moment in healing and in yoga, we like to talk about how healing happens in the present moment. So we aren't ruminating about the past. We aren't worrying about the future. We're bringing our focus to our strengths and creating a mindset that is looking at the bigger picture. So one of the ways that we can do that is creating a ritual. And some of the ideas that come up in being able to focus on what brings you joy and doing more of that. What brings you contentment and doing more of that. So brainstorming, maybe a list, maybe you already have a ritual, maybe you already have something you know that works for you. And maybe taking the time the first thing in the morning, either before you get up out of bed stretching, breathing, setting an intention in your mind for how you want your day to go. Or you have a formal ritual, like having a gratitude journal, turning on some music, setting the stage for your internal environment. All of these things create a healing environment. So whatever it is that you love to do, creating this space allows us to connect to the coherent energy within us when we have that internal environment and that stage set. So another way we can do this is by helping others. One of my favorite groups is the Heart Math Institute out of Santa Cruz, California. And they have been studying for a long time the heart activation. And that is where you can see this little girl helping her friend up and supporting another person. This changes our chemistry in our body. So those thoughts that we have, they lead to a cascade sending messages to our glandular system, releasing hormones, releasing dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, that connection. And when we're in our present moment, when we have the fortitude and the insight to be able to see a moment and be willing and open to have the support, we're able to support others. And that in turn feeds us and nourishes us. So the Heart Math Institute did the study of activating the heart, the number of pathways of afferent. So they're going from your heart up to your brain and a cascade of healing emotions through your body. And that is well documented and studied. And another thing that research has shown is that service to others helps decrease depression and anxiety. Even the smallest things of making eye contact can change somebody's day. So just looking for those ways that help nourish others and nourish yourself. And the next one here is the same thing, a poetic principle. What we choose to study makes a difference and even describes the world as we know it. So thinking of all the things that we are, the thoughts that we're thinking, some we don't know, some we can just let go. But when we have that focused awareness of what we are digesting, what we're nourishing, what we're taking in to our bodies, setting boundaries for the amount of news, the amount of exposure that we get, maybe setting as much time as we listen to the news as we listen to our internal environment. So I know, everybody wants to be informed and we want to be connected in that way, but just realizing and noticing everything that you're exposed to and being able to take the time to focus your energy and your thoughts of what you want to focus on. So the next set is moving forward and being able to envision and visualize creating a compelling future. What is your vision and how do you see it? And as we move through a model from motivational interviewing, the 5 Ds. So taking a breath here, it's a lot of information. I just kind of thrown out to us. And maybe just taking a mental snapshot or a screenshot and thinking of these tools that you can utilize to create your ritual, to create your internal environment practice, and defining what that is to you. So thinking about a strength that you have or something that's already working in your life, a topic you want to work on, and then moving that into expanding on what's already working. What is the thread that you follow in your life where you show up time and time again? What is it in your life that makes you you, that gives you that authentic feeling when it's doing something that you love, connecting with family, connecting with friends? What is it that makes you? And then moving on to the funnest part for me is dreaming, allowing, as if you could let all the limitations of the outside world go and just dream, brainstorming on your vision, how you envision your life to be. And then moving on to design. What are the options? How will you make this happen? And taking the time to allow that exploration. And then action planning. So coming up with goals, coming up with small things that you can do, moving towards your goal, your dream, your action steps. And those could be very small, and really defining them of what, when, how, why. And then always coming back to, as wellness is never static in the human condition, nothing is ever in a fixed position. We're always moving through the flow and coming back to what I'll invite you to come back to is your strengths and what brings you joy. And if you're, we wake up every day in the human condition in the 21st century, the year 2021, with information overload, and bringing it back, focusing on your strengths, what brings you joy. And at the VRC, we have a slew of classes to help support you in that way. Everything that we're exposed to, we have to digest. And if we are focusing on our thoughts, on our mindset, and being able to bring in small ways and changes that we can help support that through some of our mindfulness classes, our wonderful culinary medicine classes, yoga classes, our movement and strength training, and our stress management classes, and our holistic health classes with Dr. V. Any way that you can get up, change the channel, come into your moment, your present moment, that's where the healing happens. So I want to thank everybody for being here with us today. And I'd like to see what questions came up. We have Bobby, our wonderful educator here with us. And please, if you'd like to chat, or I believe unmute yourself too, we'd like to open the stage for questions, comments, answers. So thank you, Bobby, for being here for us. And maybe if anybody has any tips on things that's working for them, or something that brings them joy. One of their rituals that they do. That's always fun to hear too.
This doesn't have to be just about like the 5D model or the poetic principle. Like, what do you got? What's going on within your lives right now? Some questions you have about behavior change, anything you want to share that you're doing. Like Lisa just shared outdoor gatherings with friends, which is brilliant because all things being equal, your social network, the quality of your relationships, and the level of support you feel you have is key to, or the lock on transformation, getting unstuck, moving forward, and basically creating the emotional state. that changes the things in your brain that support the changes you want most in your life. Okay, this is something by Yolanda. I want to address this first. Where change is not easy to me, anger comes first. That's interesting. And you know what? You're not alone there, because I think anger serves a couple of purposes. Now, sometimes if anger intensifies past a certain point, or if it's chronic or continually angry, that can be destructive. Anger in and of itself is a valuable emotion. And I'll tell you a couple of ways it's valuable. One, we have a blueprint of the way things should be. These are our values. And when our values, our blueprint of the way things should be, are not congruent with the way things actually are, we experience an emotion. And sometimes that emotion is anger. Because if things were exactly the way our blueprint said they should be, why would we react with anger? If there wasn't a value that was being threatened, ignored, or compromised, we wouldn't feel that way. Another benefit of anger is it kind of tells us which one of our basic human needs are going most unmet in the moment, and therefore need attention and resolution. And anger is different from other painful emotions like fear or sadness, because typically when we're feeling fear or sadness, what do? We constrict or we recoil. We try to distance ourselves from the situation. Anger is one emotion that might not feel good in the moment, or actually it might. I'll get to that in a second. It's an approach-based emotion. So when an animal gets threatened in the wild, or we get threatened in our lives, when we're feeling angry, we don't withdraw, we connect. So it kind of, in some cases, it identifies that you've gotten to a certain point where you want change. It's getting you from a place of complacency. And I don't mean that as a judgment, a place where you're not prepared act, or you're not yet willing to take steps, and it engages you in the process of moving forward. And sometimes, when I said anger feels good, it basically allows us to capture and have a certain locus of control, especially when you're in a situation like we've all been in over the past year, where we feel like so many variables are outside of our control. And the less control we have in our lives, the less certainty we seem to have. And certainty and safety, which is a basic human need, are inseparable. They're connection together. So anger, if I'm angry, at least I can control how I'm feeling in the moment, and that gives us a modicum of safety. So anger by itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. It could actually be a good thing. The question becomes, what is your anger trying to tell you? And what you need to do to resolve the situation. I just wanted to talk about that, because how do you confront anger without getting emotional? That's a really good question. Well, here's the thing. A lot of confronting anger occurs outside of the moment. Because inside of our brain, if you take a look at the structure, the anatomy of our brain, our emotional brain centers, our limbic system, our amygdala, has more influence in moments of arousal. So when we're feeling afraid, let's say, or we're feeling angry, survival-based emotions, those centers of the brain that process those emotions have more influence than our higher executive centers. And there's a reason for that, because in times of threat where fear and anger would be appropriate, and anger responses are usually when something's threatened. Maybe our lives aren't threatened by a saber-toothed tiger, but like I said, a principle or a value is threatened. Speed in those instances are more important than accuracy when it comes to survival. So In retrospect, one is what you say to yourself about why you were experiencing anger. So when you look back, a lot of times we have certain beliefs. They're not our own, societal beliefs, or they've been beliefs that just thoughts that have been proposed to us with enough frequency and intensity, just accept them. So just because you had a moment of anger doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It's probably a normal response to threat. Ask yourself, what was that principle that was violated? What am I feeling right now? And if you, I don't know if anybody here was on the last session we did, one very important, simple exercise you can engage in is affective labeling. Affective labeling is when you go deeper than just saying, I'm angry. Because very seldom are we angry. Get to the specific emotion. The greater the specificity, the greater the effectiveness of this exercise. Am I feeling betrayed? Am I feeling disgusted? Am I feeling violated? What exactly is causing this emotion? If I were to dig deeper and chunk down, what is it specifically that I'm feeling other than anger? And the second you arrive at a level of specificity about what you're feeling, it decreases the intensity of the emotion, which allows us to more effectively engage in reflection. When you say, well, what was violated that caused that? Why did I respond that way? Another question is it true? Because a lot of times our perceptions are different from reality. So this is just a scenario that pops into my head. Let's say you're in a meeting and there's Jill sitting right across from you at a table, and you're talking about something that's really important. Now, Jill has her laptop open, and reading into that, and say, every time I'm speaking, Jill's either on her mobile phone, she's got her laptop open. Jill doesn't respect me. As a matter of fact, she's being disrespectful. I'm being disrespected inside this meeting. You know what? I've been taking this for a long time, and today I'm finally going to confront you. Before you do that, it might be that, Jill's a horrible person and she's disrespecting. Or it might be Jill's feeling overwhelmed in her life and she's not focused on anything. And she's trying to multitask, navigate through a turbulent sea that she feels she's drowning inside of that rather than being able to swim forward to her destination. So ask yourself, is this true? And if so, how do I know? And then the next thing is, what is the other person, or what are certain variables within the situation I might not have considered? And brainstorming, Michelle touched upon that brilliantly today. Brainstorming is a good way of getting your thoughts on paper. Because whatever you're angry about, whatever you're overwhelmed about, whenever you're feeling an emotion you don't want to feel, the undefined nuances, definitions of it, add to the intensity of it. You get it on paper, you get clear about what exactly you're dealing with. And by doing that, you're exerting a locus of control, just taking it from being an overwhelming emotion inside your body or your mind, and taking action and putting it on paper. So when you put on paper, come up with what are 5 possible responses to this, or 10 responses. At this point, what you want to do, especially if you're angry in the moment, focus more on idealistic responses rather than realistic responses. Don't edit. So you might say, you know what, I might take Jill out for a cup of coffee. Another idea is, I'm going to tell Jill off, or, I'm going to throw her laptop in the rubbish bin. Probably not the best idea, but write it down. Get all your ideas out and say, okay, what would be the most constructive response? Being that I'm angry, I understand that there's something I don't want to happen. I don't want to be disrespected in the meeting. What do I actually want to have happen? which 2, 3 of these responses are most congruent in what I want to have happen rather than exacerbating a series of events because of my response that I might not want. That makes sense. Does that answer that? And somebody also said, hold on, that they can't unmute themselves. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Yolanda. That was a really great comment. It was very honest and it was really helpful too. Appreciate it. I don't know why somebody wouldn't be able to unmute themselves. Actually, whenever somebody struggles with technology, it's usually me. So I feel useless in this situation. If I'm useless right now, I do apologize. Oh, I sometimes do. I sometimes hit the mute button and hit it again. I don't know if that's worked.
I think it's the setup of the webinar, actually.
My wife in her past life was an IT engineer. Solution to everything is shut down and reboot, which probably wouldn't be helpful here, would it? Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions?
I see a lot in the chat box, Bobby.
Would you do me a favor, Michele? Would you read me one that?
I see 23, but I can't open it. Maybe Andrea can open it for us.
Yeah, because I'm trying to navigate through the chat box right now. Wait, hold on, my biggest challenge is to identify the moment.
You guys hear me? I am scrolling through. There's a lot of really great comments and questions in here about it's like when you're in that moment, how do you navigate through it? Seems to be kind of the common theme. So Bobby, I don't know if you want to say a little bit more. I know you mentioned affective labeling a moment ago, but I know, and then also in the last webinar, we talked more on a couple of tools people can use in real time. Okay. I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about in a moment where folks are overwhelmed with whatever the emotion is, anger, sadness, frustration, disgust, some of those emotions that you mentioned. Is there a process we could follow or some steps we can remember to help us get through it, knowing that that's really tough to do in the moment?
What do I do right now? Like, okay, this isn't like something that happened this afternoon. This is right now. I'm feeling a certain way. If I tell Jill off, that's going to look really bad in front of my colleagues, even though Jill probably deserves it. She does. But like, what do I do in the moment? Okay. So there's a couple of things. And my disclaimer here is when I say look at this in terms of reflection, sometimes we're in the moment. The problem with thinking about the response is you have to think about it. But it's hard to access clarity of thought because you're pissed off in the moment. But one thing is, if that happens, don't berate yourself. I hate giving any type of advice or guidance around don't. But think about if you were a friend of yours. A friend said, oh, I had this thing happen in a meeting. Your friend would probably say, okay, well, listen, you were upset. This has been happening a lot. This situation really put you in a state that, maybe you shouldn't have responded the way you responded. Your friend would be kind. So treat yourself the way you would respond to a friend. What do we do actually in the moment? And even though it's difficult, there are a few things. First, when you're going through assertions in your head, statements, try to convert those into questions. So instead of saying, like, and not questions like, why is Jill so horrible? I mean, that's a question. A better question might be, what is going on with Jill in the moment? Or what are my options in the moment? The reason why this works, because a question, the quality of question, put a space between stimulants and response. Think about it this way. My fist here, my emotional brain. My fist here is my logical executive brain. I could probably choose a better response. When the activation level of one goes up, the other one starts to go down. When you start to ask yourself questions, well thought out questions, not questions that reaffirm the thing that's making you upset in the first place, it's almost like a dimmer switch. You know, like when you walk into your office, you don't want a bright light, you just turn it on a little bit. The higher the quality of the question, the more you start to turn up the brightness in your prefrontal lobe. That's the part of the brain that allows you to rationalize and strategize around a response. That's your executive brain center. And the more you start to activate that brain center, the dimmer the lighting is in your emotional brain center, which is causing you to react in the moment. And you might have a very good reason why you're reacting. Second thing, change your physiology. So a lot of us are led to believe that the reason why you smile is because you're happy. And that's true. But it also works in reverse. When you smile, it makes you feel happy. There are certain patterns of communication within the muscles of the face that link with centers of the brain that make you happy. And I'm not talking about a fake smile, like a sports announcer, where it's all eyes and teeth. I'll give you an example. Let's say that communicating with an airline employee, an airline agent, those people can make you angry very quickly. And you rock up and they're saying that your flight is delayed. You're on time, but they're telling you that due to some policy, they're not going to let you onto the flight. And now let's say the flight that you're on, you have to get to, you're not going on holiday. It's very important you get to your destination. So you're fuming and they have to call over a supervisor. And next thing you know, this whole thing, flight's delayed. They're like, okay, we'll let you through. And you storm through security. You're really upset and your heart's beating and you're running through that scenario and thinking about like how horrible and sadistic that person is at the ticket counter. You sit down and you want to be angry because you know, like when you're really angry because the situation calls for it. And it's almost like you've earned that anger. And you're sitting there in your righteous indignation. All of a sudden you look up. There's a person there with a toothless baby. And this baby gives you the most sincere smile. And instantly, your mirror neurons match and mirror the smile on the baby's face. Now, you don't want to smile. You want to sit there in your anger. Remember, you deserved it. But when you see that baby's face, just you reflexively smile. It's a sincere smile. You start sending same exact messages to your brain that baby is sending to his or her brain. Instantly, what do you feel? Against your will, you can't help but feel happy. You change your physiology. I know within a meeting or an instant, you can't watch a funny video or something inspiring on YouTube and smile. You can change the way you move. If you've watched Amy Cuddy's, she wrote a book, Presence, and if you don't want to go out and buy the book and invest like hours reading it, it has a TED Talk where she talks about power poses. And in certain poses, such as a pose where you're wide, you take up a lot of space, you're tall through your spine, not only do you increase testosterone, importantly, you lower the levels of stress hormone within your body. That's critical for changing your state. When you're angry, you have a certain posture. You have tension through your jaw. You have tension through the muscles in front of the shoulder. Think about changing the physiology a bit. You change the messages that you're sending to your brain. So it's almost a switch on how am I feeling in the moment versus how would I rather feel? What's a more resourceful state? That's a question. And then how do I change my physiology? What if I were feeling, however you want to feel, confident? If I were feeling at peace, what would that look like physically? And conscientiously go through your body and change how you're holding your body, how you're holding your posture, how you're communicating on a nonverbal level. You'll start to change your emotional state a little bit. So those are two things you can do right there in the moment. Was that helpful?
Hey, Bobby, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm seeing lots of yeses when you ask, is that helpful?
Excellent.
I'm seeing some yeses. So we've got about.
Are there any no's? Like, that was just ridiculous.
I mean, if anybody's thinking it, they're not typing it. We have about 3 minutes left. I'm wondering if you or Michelle want to share with folks on the webinar about how they can take advantage of other offerings that we have, get in touch with us. I'll type some resources in the chat, but if you guys want to share some of those resources, that I think would be super helpful in the last couple of minutes.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm going to hand this back to our lead presenter for the session, Michelle.
Great, thank you. Yes, and Andrea, thank you. Typing in the VEBA-resource-center.com, which gives you our calendar of all of the amazing offerings and classes that we're having throughout the week. And there are wonderful, amazing classes on nutrition and yoga, movement, strength training, and mindfulness. So if they're, as we talked about, starting our day and creating a stage for ourselves, there is a wonderful 6 a.m. sunrise yoga class on on Tuesdays and Fridays. And then there's a wonderful mindfulness class at 6:30 on Mondays and Thursdays. And a great 15-minute stretch on Tuesdays and Fridays at 7:30 with John. And just, pick one, see if you like it, come back for more. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to be here with us today and finding your way back to Zoom. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, and just know that we are here for you, and the Care Navigation team is also here for you if you want to make a one-on-one appointment. And we're just continuing to support and expand, and I wish you all of the best. And knowing that your resources outside are here, we are here for you, and all the inner resources are available to you at all times as well. So hope you have a great night, great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Type some resources for everybody in the chat, how to get a hold of us for various questions, as well as just general information on VEBA-resource-center.com. We hope to see you soon. Take good care of yourself and your people. Bye, everyone.